All right, everybody, welcome back to Black Royalty, where here everyone is royalty. I'm your host, King J, yet again. And today we have someone incredibly special. We have Staff Sergeant Thomas here with us, here to tell us a little bit about his story, about going into the military and coming to college and all things like that. So we're super happy to have you on.
Oh, yeah, I'm super happy to be here. It's the first time doing a podcast, though, so we'll see how this goes.
Very, very dope. So why don't we just get right into it? So what led you to go into the military, first of all?
Well, it's two things. Where I'm from, I'm from Maryland, so shout out to the DMV.
Mm-hmm.
Right outside of Baltimore, it's this little town called Edgewood. It's nicknamed Little Baltimore, if that gives any context for those who know.
Little Baltimore.
But I started to see like everyone around me was kind of stuck. Right, there's a lot of depression, a lot of drugs, a lot of gang violence and stuff like that. And what I noticed, at least personally in my opinion, a lot of it was to induce excitement. So people were doing these crazy things just to give their life meaning because they didn't feel like they had it. And I was working at a warehouse, and the warehouse I was working at, they had a contract with the staffing agency. So through the staffing agency, a lot of prior convicts and people that were on parole would work at the same warehouse as me. So, and I got the job at 17 because my mom, had some connections. So you can imagine the type of people I was working with as a young man.
Yeah.
Then my brother, he ended up getting arrested and going to prison. And then it was kind of like a wake-up call, like I need to get out of here. I didn't do too well in high school. I barely graduated. So I know like I didn't really have too many options. I tried to do the college thing, but I was distracted at that time. My mind was on other things. Then I ended up finding my way into a recruiter's office and signed the papers. Staff Sergeant Nathaniel Tatum. He's actually a police officer in Harford County.
Yeah. And the Marines too, nonetheless. Like you talking about excitement, Marines, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
My first choice was actually the Navy.
Really? Air Force, wasn't it?
Nah, I didn't assume any of those other branches. Just it was either my first choice was the Navy. My pops was in the Army, but I don't know. I just never appealed. The Army never appealed to me. But I wanted to join the Navy because I wanted to be a corpsman. Because I had aspirations of being a nurse. I know, right? Yeah, because you know me. Yeah, that doesn't seem. Okay. Yeah, so, but that was kind of like a half decision. Like it wasn't really something I really wanted to do. I just thought I wanted to do it. Then I went to the recruiting office, and I actually went to boot camp early. I was only in it's called the DEP, the Delayed Entry Program. It's what you do before you go to boot camp to make sure you're like in shape and like all that stuff. Yeah. I was only in the DEP for 3 months. So I like officially, did all my stuff, got inducted through MEPS and all that stuff, and then went to boot camp 3 months later because I took a guy's spot. He like broke his leg. I think he was a construction worker or something like that. He broke his leg. My recruiter called me and was like, "Hey, you trying to go to boot camp?" And I was like, "Yeah, get me out of here now." And I went to boot camp in August 1st, 2011.
Did you go to Paris Island? Or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sand, fleas, and ridiculous amount of heat. Humidity was wild. But it was definitely one of the best decisions I ever made, and I don't regret it. And I would go back and make that decision the same exact way 100 times over. It hasn't always been the best, but I think it's been the best for me, if that makes sense. Because, the military kind of puts you in a position where you have to mature fast or you won't be successful.
Right.
There are the ones that slip through that get promoted and they're not very mature, but in my case it was like let all your dispositions go and develop. So
yeah, I've been in I've not been in the military officially yet. I've been in ROTC for that's 7-8 years
for sure,
now.
that's something.
And I definitely feel you on the whole maturity aspect, because there was like zero tolerance for literally anything less than. I kind of want to caveat that as well into, you were talking about how you wanted to be a corpsman and you wanted to do this stuff, but you didn't like necessarily have the grades in school and you didn't like the college thing. So how did that translate into becoming a drill sergeant? How does all that? I'm just having a hard time picturing, like, there's this kid that like he done this and this and then drill sergeant.
So in the Marines we call it a drill instructor when you go drill teach instructor. Boot camp. But when I went to boot camp, there was a weird situation that happened, right? So there was apparently, as a drill instructor, his name was Sergeant Johnson. He was 3rd Battalion. If you ever watch this, I don't know, but he apparently I looked like him. Oh, okay. So when I was a recruit, there would be times where the drill instructor would be like, hey boy, get over here. And I'm like, oh, sir. And I'll go over, and if I take your cover off, I take your little cover off, and they'll face that way, and I face that way, and I face that way, and I face that way. And I was like, go away. All right, sir. And I'll go away. I'm like, that's weird. And I don't know what that was. And it happened a lot.
Okay.
It happened like a few times where random drill instructor, there would be a group of them talking, and they'll call me over and make me run all around. And then, at first I thought I was doing something wrong. And I was like, oh, but then I realized, like, it looks like they're like looking at my face. And I'm like, I'm not that good looking. So it's definitely not that, right? And then we became Marines. It was like, I think it was like maybe mid-October, because I graduated October 28th, 2011. I'll never forget a day. But we're at the Warriors breakfast. So you do the crucible, and then you get your envelope anchor, and then you become. Do none of that.
I'm not doing none of that.
So you go to the chow hall, and you get to sit and eat with your drill instructors and actually like have a remotely normal conversation.
Yeah, because there's still people
and stuff like that, and it's super weird.
It's weird.
As I'm sitting there, you know how you can feel somebody like behind you. I felt somebody behind me, and I turned around, and Sergeant Johnson, and he was like, "Get up." I stood up, and he was like, "Somebody said we look alike," and I was like, "I sir," and he was like, "You gonna come back here or what?" And I didn't know that question would linger in my mind for the rest of my career. I didn't give him an answer. I just stared at him awkwardly, just to put that out there. And he was like, whatever, sit down. And I sat down and kept eating. Fast forward to 2014, I got promoted to sergeant November 1st. I put in a package immediately. Young. I was super young. I got promoted to sergeant in 3 years. It was fast.
Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. Put in a package, got denied. Because of my MOS, my job was like important. They call it a critical MOS.
What MOS was that?
6317. I was avionics technician for F-18s.
That does sound pretty critical.
Yeah. So, and that was around a time where retention wasn't really that good. But they told me no. So I stayed in. I was pretty mad about that. But I went to my next duty station in South Carolina, and I put in another package. They told me no again. And I was kind of in a bad spot mentally because I really wanted, to achieve that goal. Then I ended up getting hit for recruiting.
Doesn't every Marine have to go for recruiting? Or is that...
You have to do one of they call it the big three. MSG, recruiting, drill instructor. So you got to do one of them. You don't have to, but the goal is for majority of the senior leaders, like most of the sergeant majors have done another B billet. It's not likely that you'll get promoted currently without hitting one of those three and being successful. Just because they want to see you excel in multiple different facets, not just your job. They want to see that you can be put in a new environment and do well as well and contribute to the overall mission of the Marine Corps, whatever it is. So, so I got hit for recruiting. I had to sign for my recruiting orders. I was supposed to be out of there 5-17 in July. But I told my leadership, I was like, I really want to be a DI, and they pulled some strings, and boom, I ended up going to DI school in July of 2017. It was horrible.
DI school is one of the most difficult, isn't it? Like a lot of people drop.
Yeah, a lot of people quit, or they just physically can't make it, or even mentally. It's just a very, I hate to use this word because it sounds cliche. It's a very demanding job. Very demanding job. It takes a certain kind of person to be good at that job. We won't go into the specifics of that, but it takes a different kind of person to...
Different type of psychology.
We'll leave that there at the base level. But I went to DI school, and it was definitely a culture shock because, you know, regardless of what rank you were a student, and you were going to get treated how recruits get treated, which isn't a bad thing. But it's just, you know, coming from all these people, like we had, you know, combat vets and guys that were meritoriously promoted to every rank and like all these different things. And we're getting yelled at for not holding the canteen the right way again. So that was kind of rough, a rough transition. But I kind of put my head down and I just did what I would expect someone to do if they were put in that position. I just did the best I could. And that worked out well because I ended up graduating. I was one of the honor graduates of my class. It's called Gung Ho. Basically, the class voted for me to get the award. And I was surprised because, you know, you don't do it for the superlatives. You do it because you're just supposed to do it. And it ended up working out. I went to 3rd Battalion Mike Company. First cycle was a struggle. I'm not a doctor.
Why was that?
So what I've noticed in life is when stuff goes right, something's going to go wrong. And something did go wrong. It was a bad relationship. And it affected me a lot because I was on my first cycle.
So for those who don't understand, first cycle is when the drill instructor goes to his
first
unit,
his
first training cycle where the recruits actually come in and they have to train them.
Yeah. So learning that and then being in that environment, it was just rough. There's times where I wanted to quit. Never really talked to anybody about it, and maybe I should have, but...
You didn't go see Chaplin?
Nah, I ain't go see nobody. Because that environment's so fast-paced that sometimes, you know, you feel like, and you shouldn't feel like that. When you mentally are in a dark place, go talk to somebody and get the help. Take it from me. Because I didn't do it. And maybe I would have fared better if I would have. So keep that in mind. But I got through it. And I ended up having to change companies because there was some craziness going on. If you're interested in looking it up, look up Raquel Siddiqui. It was a recruit in 2017. Some craziness happened. So I got there after that. So if you look it up and you read that whole situation, I got there right after that kind of happened. So I was probably in a pretty, not very, very scrutinized environment. So there's eyes on you everywhere,
right? Doing,
you know, the slightest thing wrong, you know, your career was in jeopardy. But I moved companies. I went to India company. And at first I was upset because I felt like I was being punished. But
you felt like you were being punished because you moved to a different company? Why was that?
Well, because I liked the company I was at. I knew everybody. You know, I already built relationships, and now I'm moving to another company where they don't know me. So basically I got to prove my work ethic again. So I had to do my quote unquote first cycle all over again with another company.
Right.
But it ended up working out. The environment at first, it was really... I felt like all eyes are on me, but maybe that anxiety was self-induced. Right?
But it wasn't like hostile.
No, it wasn't hostile. It was just different. So it being different, maybe I overanalyzed stuff, you know, like, because I do have the tendency to be an overthinker. So, but I ended up making some really good friends, some lifelong friends, 2 of them, which I still talk to. Shout out to Craig and Jamar, aka Staff Sergeant Johnson and Staff Sergeant Hill. They call
if they
us,
watching. What's up?
They call us like the 3 Musketeers. We were all. It's funny. Me and Johnson are actually from the same state. We're both from Maryland, and people would mistake us all the time. And then Hill is from, I think he's from Wisconsin, country, infantry cat.
But you can't.
Yeah, so he was like combat type. That was just his job. Yeah. It was like combat arms. So he's a pretty funny guy. But working with them was the best time in my life. It sucked. It was horrible. It was horrible. We all weighed like 160 pounds soaking wet, but it was fun. Going through the struggle with them it made it worth it. You know, because we all learned and we all struggled, but we all also always...
I thought there was like forgive me for interrupting. No, I thought there was like a rotation system. So like when the DIs all go in and like on a certain day or something like that, like a bunch of them go in, you all introduce yourself, things like that. And then as the cycle goes on, like you rotate so that you can eat, sleep, rest and all that, and then rotate like that. Yeah, you don't get. I mean, I know that they don't, like, ever since that I got to college, I learned that.
So we rotate duties, but when I say duties, I mean like spending the night with the recruits. But at first, for at least the first like 2 weeks, everyone's there all the time because it's such a volatile time. And if something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong in the beginning. When the recruits don't know because, you know, they're like stressed out and emotions are high and kids want to quit and stuff like that. So everyone has to be there. But like I said, going through it with them, yeah, it was the best time of my life because we had fun. I mean, not fun in the moment, but fun after the fact. It's like, I almost passed out, you know, screaming, and then we're like talking about it, or the recruits would be away or whatever, and then we would just be sitting talking about life.
So you know that isn't like the most healthy thing in the world. Is there any way I mean, obviously it most likely is not gonna change, unfortunately, but like, is there a way to change that, to make that at least not even just more effective, but like easier on the body, mind, soul?
So just a disclaimer, it's not like the leadership that makes it hard, right? Because there is stuff in place for us to make sure that we are, you know, eating and stuff like that. Majority of that stress is self-induced, right? So like when we don't eat, it's because we feel like we need to be, you know, there all the time. And it's more of a pride thing that makes you push yourself to that limit. It's not like the leadership saying, oh, no, you need to do all these things and you need to make sure you're up for 20 hours and all that stuff. It's not written anywhere that has to be a thing, right? But personally, at least in my opinion, and I can only speak for myself, but I felt like I needed to push myself to show the recruits that they needed to push themselves because they see everything that you do, literally everything that you do. And eventually they find out what car you drive. Eventually they know how you walk. They know your, I don't want to call them catchphrases, but your pet words. Yeah. You know, they figure that stuff out. So I'd rather them see me put in the effort and not be lazy and put in work than get 8 hours of sleep.
Right.
So losing that aspect was worth it, in my opinion, because they got to see what hard work looks like. And absolutely. They can never question if, oh, did my drone soldiers put out? Well, I know for sure one of them did. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So how did all of this, right? All this experience, you to drill instructor and then so on and so forth, what led you to the decision to now go back to college? Especially, not even just go back to college, but then you decided that you would go back to college at a PWI at the University of San Diego, literally here. Yeah. That was just where I met you.
Yeah. So it's a funny story of how that actually happened. So I took a couple college classes before I went to Paris Island. Before I did the whole sort of thing. I think it was like 3 or 4 classes, and go off on another tangent here, but his name was Bosler. He was one of my corporals. So we worked together, but I outranked him, just to put that in context. I don't like saying people work for me. I don't like that, because they don't. We just work together. I just happen to be the one that got paid more. But one day we were sitting down, and one thing I've always exhibited is a genuine concern for the people around me. And one day he was like, hey man, like, would you ever go to school? And I was like, well, I mean, I didn't do well in high school, but I mean, eventually I plan to go back to school. And he was like, what are you waiting for? And I was like, I don't know. He was like, huh. So he gets on the computer. So as he's talking to me, he's typing. And then he's like, and he started asking me questions. He's like, "Where are you from?" And I didn't notice, what he was doing. And he's like, "What'd you go to school for?" And I was like, "Well, I'm really interested in psychology. That's probably something I'll be interested in." And he's like, "Okay." He's just doing whatever. And the next day, I get a call. It's like 1600, 4 p.m. for the ones that don't know that time. And it's a college. It's a Southern New Hampshire University. Like one of their advisors or representatives called me and was like, "Hey, we got your application for your registration for classes." And I was like, "What's your extension?" And she gave me her extension. I was like, "I'm going to call you right back." I called Bosler and I was like, "Did you sign me up for college?" And he was like, Yep. And then he hung up.
Okay.
Yeah. A bunch of things wrong with that, by the way. But
it seems like there's a lot of things wrong with that.
Yeah, but I was like, you know what? Let's do it. So I took, again, not many classes. I took the basic gen ed classes. I took like English, history.
You did end up taking the classes there? Like, did you go there, or were you just? It was all online.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I took the class online. I stopped for a little bit. Then when I got to the depot, I was like, man, I need to continue my education.
How did you manage taking classes while you were?
I knew that question.
That don't even make no sense. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to play it. It's where's your sleep time at then?
I did not sleep. There was one time. So my first 2 cycles, I didn't take classes. I don't think I would. I think I would probably have failed out.
Wait, you were taking classes while you were
in cycle? Yeah.
No, I can't. I personally, I wouldn't be able to do it. I just know as a DI, you were taking.
Well, just to put put some context and a little bit of shout outs to a couple people. There's other people that did the same thing. So,
were there any like Zoom classes at all? Like you had the Zoom?
No. It was all online. It was all online. That's nice. I told them when I started
talking to them like, guys, what's up?
Voice gone. No, but I emailed all my professors and I told them what type of job I was doing, and they was like, "Oh no, we understand completely. Just let us know ahead of time, And then that kind of put me in a mindset of like being able to plan, and I think it makes it easier to plan now because of doing that. If I can turn in assignments, after running all day and doing hikes, then I can do run assignments now. Doesn't make it any less stressful. But it is pretty difficult.
I thought my college life was hard.
Yeah, so I took anatomy and physiology and introduction to humanities and introduction to social sciences at Southern New Hampshire. I don't know if those are the actual course titles. I could be jacking that verbiage up, but those are basically the classes that I took while I was and it was while I was still a green belt. So the green belts are like the really mean ones. Right. And then I did it again. I took more classes when I was a senior. And one of my series commanders, which is the first officer in that chain of command, he comes in and I'm like on the computer, like falling asleep. And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, sir, I got homework. I just finished, this documentation that you needed me to finish. And now I'm like trying to do my homework." He's like, "You're in college right now?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." And he was like, "How's that going?" And I was like, it's pretty rough. He's like, "Let me know if you need, extra time to do assignments and I can like send you away." No, sir, I'm good. I don't need no extra time. Because getting hooked up's not a bad thing. Right. But sometimes we forget that you got to fall in love with the process, with the effort that you put in. You know what I'm saying? Because you get accommodated, then where's the grind?
I don't know. I'm always of the mindset of, smarter, not harder. That's me personally. That's just the way that I live my life. But like, I'm just trying to. I'm not insulting, nothing like that. What you're describing would probably be impossible for me and many people that I know would probably be impossible. What made it possible for you? Was it just your desire to do so? Because you just got thrown this by a friend that you had. You didn't have to do it. And it would have been nothing whether you did it or not because they were just gen ed classes. So what, like, you're just saying that you want to, but like, where did the super want? Is it just to prove something to someone or yourself or something?
All right, so I'll segue into two things. One, just to give a little personal story, I'm adopted. I have 9 siblings.
That's a lot of siblings.
Yeah, as of now, my older brother's a felon, and my older sister had issues that she had. We can save that for another day. But I felt like I needed to be successful to show my mom, that she was, my mom and my dad, that they did a good job, that it wasn't all bad, like their effort wasn't for nothing. Yeah, so that's one thing. Two, I'm a fan of working smarter, not harder as well. Okay. I do. But at the same time, because I knew of other people, other Marines and stuff like that were in the same situation, doing the same things without the accommodation, I wouldn't want to rob myself of the opportunity just to see if I could do it. You see what I'm saying? So, because now me not getting the accommodation and not, being, oh yeah, you can go home early and do the homework. Well, now I'm robbing myself of a potential opportunity to see how far I can push myself. It's like a workout, right?
Really?
So some workouts, like leg extensions, you want to sit down, right? You're in a machine. There's pads on the machine. You're comfortable. If it gets a little bit too hard, you can grab the handles on the side, give yourself a little brace to push, to extend a little bit more weight, right? But a squat, a barbell squat, right? Like a free weight squat is different than, we'll say, a leg press, right? One's safer for your back. You're in a little bit better position. You're not necessarily supporting all the weight. I mean, still has its benefits and things like that, but I wanted to see how much I could squat free weight without support. You see what I'm getting at?
Interesting.
So, and if it became too much, then I would still, that option was there. So I did not have the option to do it. I just chose not to use it. And then once I didn't use it and saw I could do it without using it, I just kept doing it. Because then I fell in love with that grind, right? Because I know personally, when you face adversity, that's when you meet yourself.
Right.
So when stuff gets hard, that's who you really are. Not when everything's going easy. When everything's easy and you got, cold water, you got AC, right? You're comfortable, you got padded seat, you got all this stuff. You're going to be a nice person, right? Most people would be really nice in those situations. It's when you're tired and you're hungry and you ain't eat all day. You've been standing all day. You've been running or doing whatever it is. And then you still got to turn in this assignment at 23:59. That's when you meet yourself. That is when, you, no crap, look in the mirror and have a conversation with yourself every day. Like, okay, we're not done yet. So, and I'm not going to say it wasn't rough. It was, but I fell in love with that process. And then I became a senior drill instructor, which is like the dad. They're the nice one. Nah, I don't want to say nice because that's debatable. We'll say they're the one that if you have problems, you can go to them and like, hey, I miss my mom or whatever, and you can have that conversation without throwing off the dynamic, right? When I did that, my battalion commander, who was prior enlisted, Lieutenant Colonel Halligan, he might be a colonel now, so if I demoted you, I'm sorry. I don't know what rank he is now, but he came in one day and I was doing homework, same thing, falling asleep at the desk, and he was like, "What are you doing?" Sound familiar, doesn't it? And I was like, "Oh, I'm doing homework, sir." And he was like, "Did you take classes the whole time you were here?" And I was like, "Well, I took classes since, this cycle. Not this cycle, but, I said whatever cycle it was." And he was like, "Huh." He was like, "You ever thought about being an officer?" And I was like, flat black for life.
Well, first of all, if you taking college just to take, it doesn't make sense, first of all. But if you already taken college, then that's the whole process is to be an officer.
Not really. So there's many Marines
who get a degree and decide not to.
Mm-hmm. Because it's a whole different process. Being an officer is way different than being enlisted.
Oh, yeah. It's 100% different.
Exactly. So a lot of people don't want to make that transition because, one, they just don't want to.
Because of the difference?
Not all the time. So it could be a multitude of things. I know, at least from a lot of my friends, they just don't want to go through boot camp again. Because it's 10 weeks of,
Okay.
But that's not always the case. That's just most people just don't want to go to boot camp again. The entry-level training process isn't for everybody. Mm-hmm. Because there was prior enlisted guys that went through with me and they quit. Some of them. Or some of them made up some medical stuff to get out of it. Right? Okay. Not going to put no names out there. Yeah. But, that process ain't for everybody. This process isn't for everybody. Yeah. But he asked me if I wanted to be an officer, and I was like, I never really thought about it. And he was like, well, you should. And I was like, let me guess, you want to be a sergeant major? And I was like, hey, I do. And then he was like, well, I mean, if that's what you want to do, then by all means, But if you ever think about being an officer, my door's open. You can come talk to me because I did both. And I was all right, cool. Didn't really think about it. I got asked when I was a corporal, like when I was a younger Marine, there was a chaplain, funny that you mentioned earlier, that asked me about being an officer as an older black lady. I call her Auntie.
Auntie Chaps.
And she brought up that I should do it. And I'm like, okay, this is the second time I got asked. So, I mean, maybe this might mean something. I talked to one of my boys about it because he already had his bachelor's, and I asked him why he didn't do it. And he was like, oh, it's just not something I want to do. He's like, yeah, I mean, I'll get paid more, but he's like, I don't care about that. I just don't want to do that. I like what I do. And I was like, okay. He was like, you thinking about doing it? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, so why are you asking other people what they want to do? What do you want to do? And I was like, I'm just kind of crowdsourcing. He was like, whatever. And I was like, well, all right. So I go to see the CO, and then we kind of talked through some things. And I didn't know this, but he was in charge of like a lot of policies that came out through the Marine Corps. So he was like a policy, like he was admin by trade. So he worked up at headquarters Marine Corps and was in charge of like reviewing policies before they were published. So when I asked him about it, he told me exactly to the T what I had to do. And he was like, yeah, you just need letters of recommendation. You need these credits. I think it was 1 math, 1 English, and a natural science, but you needed at least 12 credits. So I already had the science. I already had the math and the English. Well, I didn't have the math yet. I lied. I had 2 English classes, the anatomy and physiology, the humanities, and the social sciences. So I had to take applied statistics.
That sounds so fun.